Hello Kaiju fans, welcome back to the Kaiju World Order. I am MM, and this is Monster of the Week as decided upon on the members of the Kaiju Hugbox. This week's winners is actually a trio of monsters, the OG Rampage crew. Rampage, of course, being that side-scrolling 1986 video game that was very popular in arcades and on home consoles in the 90s. Loved playing it as a kid, even more so when I got brought back in the mid-90s with World Tour, then Universal Tour, and Across Time, and then into the 2000s with Total Destruction, and all these games introduced a large roster of monsters. I do not know all of them by heart, I don't think anybody does, but there is a metric shit ton of them. Especially in Total Destruction, which I believe has 40 monsters on the Wii version, which is just insane. Now, most of them are all just palette swaps. I don't remember them all having unique abilities, or if there's really anything that made each one memorable or not. So, of course, the only monsters in this series that really got popular were George, Lizzie, and Ralph. The ape, the dinosaur, and the werewolf. Even as a kid, when I saw this roster, I knew Lizzie was a stand-in for Godzilla. I knew George was a stand-in for Kong. But for the best of me, it's, why a wolf? I mean, yeah, in the original games, the storyline with the Scum Labs or whatever turns people into giant monsters that go on a rampage and cause havoc. And the plot is just recycled over and over through each iteration, adding in some new gimmick like time travel or space travel and stuff like that, but the gameplay is all the same. But the monsters themselves were originally just people that become giant monsters, and then when you get defeated, you become a human again. So I haven't played all the Rampage games. I do not know all of the lore. I don't believe there is a lot of lore to really cover on these. I did a little bit of research here and there, found out some stuff, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of history with this property, which is one of the reasons why I think the 2018 movie was so damn good. Obviously cashing in on the success of other giant monster movies that are being made even to this day, like The Meg and Pacific Rim and Godzilla. Rampage took the idea from the video game and took out the stupidity of it, like the humans turning into giant monsters, the time travel wackiness, and all the 1990s silliness, and replaced it with a really cool Monster on the Loose action romp starring The Rock. Now, I kind of like The Rock. I mean, I grew up with him. He's always going to be The Rock to me. And so normally it's not a hard selling point for me to check out a Rock movie. With that said, seeing Dwayne Johnson with giant monsters and then throwing in Negan from The Walking Dead, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, perfect. I would actually argue 2018's Rampage is my favorite movie of the year, and I also really like Infinity War. Now, covering each monster here, I'm just going to go through one at a time. We're going to start with George, who is, of course, the King Kong knockoff. He is brown. I'm surprised the company that owned King Kong at the time didn't have a problem with Rampage and George, considering the history they had with Donkey Kong. But thankfully they didn't, or whatever happened, nothing got held up in court. And then when the monster was brought in for the movie, to keep him even more different from King Kong, which of course was still not that long ago with Skull Island, and then the 2005 Peter Jackson remake with an actual realistic Gorilla Kong, they decided to make George albino, let him talk with sign language akin to Snowflake the gorilla, which of course gave us that now iconic scene of him giving The Rock the middle finger. I remember busting a gut in theater when I saw that, and I still chuckle every time I see it. Then for Ralph got a pretty cool overhaul when it came to the movie. He's no longer just a bipedal giant wolf. He is a straight up giant wolf, but now he has aspects of other animals on him, including the ability to throw quills. He can glide with membranes between his limbs, akin to a squirrel. Godzilla fans will recognize this as something a lot like Varan. And then, of course, you have Lizzie, who has gone from a typical Godzilla knockoff with some spikes on her back to now a giant mutated alligator straight from the Florida Everglades. She now has giant tusks, frills around her jaws, rows upon rows of sharp quills or spikes running down her back and her tail, and she is just monstrous. But she still behaves like a giant alligator would. She is chomping on stuff, she is crushing stuff, and I love that about this movie is it knows it's goofy, it knows it's stupid, but it's not holding back on any of that big time Hollywood action that we got from other movies of the time, which isn't surprising considering the director of Rampage did San Andreas, also with The Rock. One aspect I just didn't care much for with the new George is, well, Lizzie and Ralph, of course, got all these like chimeric upgrades from the chemical or whatever, what was it called? George didn't get any like enhancements through the CRISPR technology that they had used to make Lizzie, or not make, but the chemical that ended up getting loose in making the monsters. George didn't get any sort of enhancements, no extra abilities, no extra spikes or rule of cool attachments like the other two did, which kind of makes sense because storyline wise he is the hero of the story. He's the one that turns good at the end, he's the lone survivor, yada yada yada. But it would be kind of cool just to separate him from King Kong even more if they would have just did something simple with, like, you know, gauntlets made of bone, or I don't know. I can think all day of ways to make a monster cracked out and weird. Weirder the better. Unfortunately, if you are a fan of this franchise, or even just wanted to see it come back, there's very low likelihood that it will. Rampage was owned and created by Midway, which did create the very popular Mortal Kombat back in the day, but has long since folded back in 2009 and is owned by Warner Brothers. And besides the 2018 movie, it seems like they have no interest in doing anything with this IP whatsoever, which does suck. When the 2018 movie was released, they did do a Dave & Buster's exclusive arcade version, which played out like the original Rampage, but with the designs from the movie. This is something I would have gladly paid a couple bucks for just to play on a PlayStation or even mobile. Don't know why they never would have done that. It seems like a wasted opportunity to me, but what do I know? As for a sequel to the 2018 movie that was originally talked about, there is a unfinished setup for a sequel which appears to have a giant squid or octopus, but nothing has come up with that, and now pushing nearly 10 years later, can't believe it's been that long. I highly doubt we're going to see Rampage come back, at least not in the same way it did in the 2018 movie. I could easily see it coming back in a 3D animated kids movie or something. I would rather it not, but I don't know. The old designs would translate very well into something from Funimation or I don't want to say Pixar. One thing I was always hoping we would also see would be Rampage popping up in Super Smash Bros. Definitely not as playable characters, because I think shrinking them down would be even more of an injustice than what they did with Ridley, and I liked Ridley in that game. but instead having them be background characters or bosses or even just a Rampage style stage where they are attacking the city while the various characters fight. Anything really to get these characters back. I would love to see Rampage get resurrected. Everything else from the 90s and 80s seems to be these days, so why not bring Rampage back? Thanks again for checking out this video. I will see you next time with another video, hopefully on Monster of the Week. I do plan on doing another video here between now and then, with a new unboxing of a new figure coming this week. If you want to take part in the next poll, come to the Kaiju Hugbox Discord server. The next 3 monsters that are being voted on are Rampage from the Ultraman franchise, Gabara from the Godzilla franchise, and the North Korean Kaiju Pulgasari. And with that all said, and now that everything all said and done, Minya, you can take it away.
Godzilla says you should like and subscribe.